Welcome to Hannity. So, are some on the left finally waking up to the crime problem in our country? Now, here's what far-left former New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio had to say.
And I think the Democratic Party has to look at this issue much more honestly and say, hey, there are some places where we should be doing better. Our leaders should be doing better.
All right, the former mayor, he will join us tonight, and he's had nice things to say about Mamdani, the Marxist Mamdani, plus a video of the left's new hero, the alleged wife-beating MS-13 gang member Kilmar Abrego Garcia, is going viral. Listen to this.
Gobierno corrupto.
In case you didn't get all that, we will tell you more. That's coming up. But first, this afternoon, President Trump touted his administration's huge list of accomplishments at a cabinet meeting that lasted nearly 3.5 hours. With reporters in the room, the president was reaffirming his commitment to having the most transparent administration in our country's history. Take a look.
Every policy of the Trump administration is designed to lift up the American worker, promote great-paying blue-collar jobs, and to rebuild the industrial bedrock of our nation. The wages for blue-collar workers are now rising at the fastest rate in 60 years, which is so important to all of us around this table. The average American worker has already seen a $500 wage increase this year, and there's no inflation. Domestic steel production is up by 100,000 tons of steel a week. We have a 50% tariff on steel, aluminum, and various other things. Copper just got brought into the picture, and that means people are going to want to make steel here. We secured new market access for American agricultural exports all over the world. Our secretary is doing a great job. Thank you, Brooke. And there's something really nice about just, you know, the openness of what we're doing. It's government. It's an open government. That's what we are.
First observation, can you imagine Joe Biden interacting with the press for over 3 hours? Does anyone even think Joe Biden could stay awake that long? And speaking for Biden, well, for months, Democrats, their allies in the state-run legacy media mob, they have been claiming that Donald Trump voters are having buyer's remorse. Well, we have a Harvard-Harris poll that dispels that false notion. When respondents were asked who has done a better job as president, Trump or Biden, President Trump comes out by a whopping 8 percentage points at 54%. By the way, my only question is, who are the 46% that answered Biden? I don't know. Maybe there are that many Americans. Are they actually suffering their own cognitive decline? Anyway, while President Trump delivers results for everyday Americans, the biggest tax cut in American history, no tax tips, Social Security, or overtime. Democrats, they are floundering as a party. They are beholden to the new radical wing of that party, led by Jasmine Crockett. We like Jasmine on this program. The Squad, Senator Pocahontas, Grandpa Bernie, of course, nutty Gavin Newsom, who is continuing his pathetic tough guy act, and their new hero, Marxist Kami Mamdani. Now, in the case of Mr. Split Personality, Nutty Newsom, well, he has spent more time trying to troll Trump on social media and podcasting with Jasmine Crockett than he has, been worrying about fixing his own state. Has the highest income taxes in the country, the highest sales taxes in the country, the highest gas taxes in the country, some of the worst schools in the country, is as out of control crime, homelessness, open-air drug markets, tens and tens and tens of billions spent on illegals, especially with Medi-Cal, massive tens and tens of billions of dollars in deficits, no water in fire hydrants and reservoirs, and he's podcasting and posting all day, every day. And this guy wants to be president. Now, these performative, pathetic stunts on social media might help him in a primary in a Democratic Party that now finds itself on the wrong side of every major issue of our time, but it certainly will not help him in any general election. Gavin, instead of trying to act like Trump's alter ego, maybe you should just think about focusing on helping the thousands of people in the Pacific Palisades whose homes were destroyed by wildfires. Nearly 13,000 homes destroyed, less than 200 building permits issued as of early July. You're not helping the people out there, Gavin. No wonder there's been a mass exodus of Californians moving now to red states. Look at that. California, beautiful state, but people can't take it anymore. But you know what? Nutty Gavin Newsom, no. listen to me, keep doing what you're doing. You know, keep allowing the homeless people to build encampments all over the state. Don't try to restore law and order. Don't crack down on drug dens. Keep running up tens and tens of billions of dollars in deficits. Remain a sanctuary state, and just keep doing what you're doing. And following Nutty Newsom's lead, the modern-day Democratic Party finds itself on the wrong side of every single issue, including crime, where they have outed themselves as anti-law and order with defund, dismantle, no bail laws, and reimagining the police. During his cabinet meetings today, President Trump highlighted the work his administration has been doing on cracking down successfully on crime in our nation's capital. Take a look.
If somebody kills somebody in the Capitol, Washington, D.C., we're going to be seeking the death penalty. And that's a very strong preventative. I think that crime is going to be a big thing. And we are the party, the Republicans are the party that wants to stop crime. We're against crime. The Democrats like crime. I don't know why. I mean, we talk about common sense. I think I got elected on talking about common sense. They're going to fight me. Like this slob of a governor you have in Illinois. And he goes about Trump, we don't need his help. Chicago is the worst. These places are really bad. We want to stay there for longer than 30 days, as you know. We have an absolute mandate, and I can extend it, but I'd rather not have to declare a national emergency because by that time, I mean, right now there's not an emergency. We should also work with our police department because you have very good police here. Very good. We're working very well with them, by the way. And we have to work together for a while.
And so far, President Trump's efforts to combat crime in our nation's capital, it is paying massive dividends. This morning, Attorney General Pam Bondi posted an update on X announcing that last night another 87 arrests were made and 4 illegal firearms were seized. President Trump is taking common sense steps to reduce violent crime. Law and order, safety, security, as I said last night, it is a prerequisite for any American to pursue happiness. Now, something every American should be on board with. That should not be an issue red and blue. No, it should be, you know, red, white, and blue. But inexplicably, the left wants no part of the effort to make our country safe and secure for you and your families. This morning, Politico sounded the alarm for Democrats, saying that if Trump's latest actions were an attempt to goad Democrats into saying crime isn't a problem, they did not disappoint. And there's no better example than Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, who has gone into full-blown meltdown mode over President Trump's efforts to take on crime and keep people safe. He was appearing on MSDNC's Liberal Morning Joe. Mayor Johnson refused 5 separate times to answer when asked if he'd accept more police funding for 5,000 cops and whether or not it would help safety and law and order in Chicago. Watch him duck and dodge and weave. Take a look.
I'm curious, would you also like to get federal funding to help put 5,000 more cops on the street in Chicago? Would that help drive down crime?
Well, look, policing by itself is not the full strategy.
No, I understand that. You've talked about the other things you want. Would 5,000 more police officers on the street in Chicago be helpful to go along with all of those social programs that a lot of cities are engaging in and having success with?
Well, look, here's the best way I can put it, Joe, is that in the 90s when I was in high school, we had 3,000 more police officers and we had 900 people being murdered every single year in Chicago. It's just not policing alone. Of course, we want more detectives.
I know it's not policing alone, but do you believe that the streets of Chicago would be safer if there were more uniformed police officers on the streets of Chicago?
I believe the city of Chicago and cities across America would be safer if we actually had, you know, affordable housing. Look,
okay,
I'm not saying that we don't.
That's not the question I asked.
I don't believe that we should narrow it down to just police officers, Joe, is what I'm saying. That is an antiquated approach. I'm saying we've invested in detectives.
Mr. Mayor, are you hearing what I'm saying? Would an additional 5,000 cops on the streets in Chicago help complement those programs to make Chicago safer?
Look, we are working hard to make sure that our police department is fully supported.
course we know the answer, but if you are in a party that supports defund, dismantle, no bail laws, reimagining the police, sending in the social workers instead, you can't answer that question. It's basic, simple, common sense. Another weekend, by the way, of violence in Chicago. 6 dead, 27 injured. It shows the urgent need for a stronger police presence in his city. And the problem goes back decades. We have been scrolling on this program the names of people shot and killed and shot and severely injured in Chicago since Obama was president. But liberal Illinois politicians are so blinded by their rage and hatred of all things Donald Trump, they don't care. They've done nothing. They're ignoring their own residents' pleas for safety. Make no mistake, as a country, we are at an ideological tipping point. Usually we say that during election years. This is an inflection point for the country. It's basic common sense versus utter stupidity. And Democrats are on the wrong side of every single issue. When President Trump took steps to fix the economy, hand out the largest tax cuts in history for working men and women in this country, no tax on tips or overtime, protecting seniors with no tax on Social Security, Democrats, they pushed back. They voted for the largest tax increase in history. When President Trump sent illegal criminal aliens out of the country, Democrats, fought for their so-called rights of the likes of Abrego Garcia to stay here. When President Trump stood up to protect women's sports, Democrats were fighting for the right to keep biological men in women's locker rooms and on the field of play. When President Trump took steps to create lasting peace around the world, Democrats rooting against peace, hoping for failure. And now as President Trump is taking steps to make the country safe and secure for you and your family and keep our citizens safe, once again, Democrats are on the wrong side, fighting to keep America's big cities, dangerous, crime-ridden? Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.